I'm coming to you live on Voice of the People USA radio and TV network on Rumble and on X. I'm your host, Danielle Walker, and on this show, we get to meet people who've rejected the status quo in their own way, and they're bringing freedom to the world. My guest today is John Harold. He's the founder of Badlands Media, and his network is bringing honest reporting, which to me is the gateway drug to free thinking. So thank you, John. I'm sure that many of you have followed him for a long time, but if you're not, you're missing out. Check out Badlands on Rumble. And before he started Badlands, he was using the pseudonym Patel Patriot, and he authored the Devolution series, which is where I started following you back in 2021, which is crazy. Welcome to the show,
Yeah.
John.
Thanks for having me, Danielle. Very excited about doing this. I appreciate the kind words.
No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And I always start out the show with a scripture just to frame out the discussion. And so let me read that. The scripture here today is Psalm 31, verses 6 through 8. And it says, I despise these deceptive illusions, all this pretense and nonsense, for I worship only you, God. In mercy, you have seen my troubles, and you have cared for me, even during this crisis in my soul. I will be radiant with joy, filled with praise for your love and mercy. You've kept me from being conquered by my enemy. You broke open the way to bring me to freedom into a beautiful, broad place. And for anybody who's interested, the entirety of Psalm 31 reads like a prayer for someone who's been awakened, especially in 2021 time frame. But the reason I brought that scripture is because that's the place that so many of us were at that time, John. And I just want to thank you. I believe that you answered a call to God, whether you knew it or not at the time, to dig into what was going on, to dig into the executive orders, because you have a gift. And digging into source documents, you gave so much hope to people whenever the world was spinning out of control. Yes, we had the Lord. Yes, we had scripture, but to get some understanding of what was going on, you really provided a grid for us to hold on to whenever there were a lot of Lynn Woods flying around. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. 2021 was a crazy time. And it was, even just finding like a little sanity check for myself, just like could not understand logically like how any of what was happening. And I think you're right. I mean, it wasn't just me looking for those answers. A lot of people were. And, it's nice to see how we've kind of like coalesced around each other and the movement has come forward since then. It's been really cool.
Yeah, and it's hysterical that we were kind of like a wild band of just people trying to figure out, okay, what app is going to work? Okay, Gab is down, Parler is, out the window. Everybody got kicked off of X. Trump wasn't there, so there was no point of being on X. Even if you weren't kicked off, nothing was happening over there. Over there. So it's just amazing that that wild band of people who were scraping and scratching to find truth came together, and now it is a legitimate movement.
Oh, it's huge, and because now we're back on all those platforms, and I didn't even really get to live through that excitement at the time because I wasn't really active on social media. So I had a little bit different perspective on how things were going down. I didn't like scramble to try to find somewhere. I just happened to stumble upon the place that got me started on my Devolution series. It wasn't really a mad scramble for the truth like everybody else. It was just I feel like I have such a different story, but those are the stories that I think are but much more important because they've been here longer. Like people like you who are looking for that truth since the beginning, and to have it like come full circle, and now we're the ones like helping put out the truth. That I think that's almost more important than the type of journey and that I came on.
Well, I think I probably came to it about 5 minutes before you. I feel like I was late to the game. I spent a lot of time in DC working, so I was kind of, I mean, people
Oh
would
no.
qualify me as part of the problem in the movement. And then I went and worked for Pfizer, so I wasn't necessarily like the most awake person. That started in 2019 probably, but I do want to hear about your story. How did you get to digging into what became the Devolution series?
Yeah. So it's been such a long time since I've done like a good interview. So back in 2021 or 2020, even, following Trump, I started getting into like the Spygate stuff, maybe even before that, 2019, 2018.
Yeah.
And along the way, that was like always the most intriguing thing. So, which is why it's really cool that it's coming back around right now. The Spygate, the Russia collusion hoax, all that stuff. The threads I used to read on Twitter read like a spy novel, and it was just always so interesting to me. Otherwise, I was just like following sports and like doing regular guy stuff. That was the part of politics that interested me and got me to start like thinking bigger about Trump and differently about Trump. And then when everybody did get kind of kicked off of Twitter and the stolen election, which was obviously stolen, you were looking for those answers, and it wasn't like I was desperate. Like I was convinced at the time that Trump wasn't going to let Biden get inaugurated. Like there's just no way.
Yeah.
I wasn't even like worried about it. It was so weird. I was so confident because it seemed like Trump was so confident. And then when it came and went and Joe Biden was inaugurated, that's when I kind of had my dark night of the soul moment. Like, what just happened? And,
Yeah.
I was on this obscure social media platform, which I don't even like to mention anymore because I don't want to give those guys credit. Those people have been awful. Um, but I discovered this other guy, Thomas Wichter. I'll give him credit all day long. Thomas Wichter, he was talking about this devolution concept, but he's a very, very smart individual, but he's also very, very condescending. Like he will not be afraid to criticize somebody who doesn't think on his level, which is very few people.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I was afraid to ask him questions about the devolution stuff. So instead I just started to like go out and research it on my own. And then, I was doing that. I was putting some posts together, and then the owner of that social media platform, he semi doxed me and basically like kicked me off. And so um I came back with a new account and said, "Hey, I'm going to end up just leaving for good. I just wanted, for those who followed me, this is what's going on." And I put out a whole article outlining what that guy did and what he was saying. It was ridiculous. Social media is nothing but drama, by the way. That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned
It's true.
since starting. Nothing but drama. Anyway, a couple of the people that were following me at the time were like, "Hey, you should just keep writing and start a Substack, start a Telegram account." And so that's what I did. And along the way, after starting that, it really just snowballed. And along the way, developed a lot of good friendships, some really bad friendships too, but learned a lot and just started putting out the content. And yeah, and here we are now, four
Here we
years
are.
later.
So I remember when you were writing the series, how long before you started doing the Power Hour with the series?
Oh, that's a great question. You know what? I have my Telegram open. I can actually look up when my first Power Hour was. And the Power Hour started like I had this Telegram chat, the Spitballers Telegram chat
Yeah.
on Telegram, and it was really good. It was really active. I'm not as active in as I used to be just because I have so much else going on. But people were always asking questions, so I said I'd dedicate an hour every week. I think it was once a week, just answering questions in Telegram, and it got really difficult to respond to people in text. So I was like, okay, well, I gotta at some point just turn this into a regular show, and see how it goes. And I think my first article came out, I want to say July 1st or 2nd. And my first actual Power Hour, looking at Telegram right now, is
Had to be that fall, maybe.
yeah, I was doing Q&As. Okay, it was on Twitch. So it would have been August 2nd. August 1st or
Okay.
2nd was my first actual like video Power Hour. So about a month after.
Well, I've been watching for a long time. I never watched on Twitch. I don't know about Twitch. I mean, I've heard of it, but
Yeah,
anyway, there's only so many social media things you can do at one time
I
without
agree with
going
that.
completely nuts. So, how did it lead to Badlands? Because
Yeah,
that's
so
kind of been the natural outgrowth.
yeah, I was in a group of a bunch of other people. Like I said, I met so many other content creators and everything along the way, and I've always felt very blessed with what I've been given. I've never charged for my content. I've never, everything's always been out there for free, but people have always been so generous. And I see other people in the movement that I would say have even better content than I do, and they're struggling and working other jobs and all these things. And so I I came up with this idea where I have this huge platform on Rumble. I had like 100,000 subscribers at the time, but I was only streaming 2, maybe sometimes 3 nights a week. Then I also had the Substack with over 100,000 followers on it, and I was like, I'm only putting out articles, especially now that the series is kind of like I didn't think I wasn't just gonna put out content just for the sake of putting out content. I wanted there to be
Yeah.
something worthwhile to put out, and I wasn't finding as much information that I felt was worthwhile. I wouldn't say the series was necessarily done, but people just weren't getting articles as much anymore. And so I was like, how do I match up the the platforms I have and give other people like access to, like, so it can be a mutually beneficial type thing. And so there's a big group of us at the time, and that's essentially what I did. I turned my personal Rumble channel into Badlands Media, turned my Substack email list into the Badlands Media Substack, and had all the other creators come on, and that was the origination, is using my platforms to benefit other people and also have those other people benefit the people on my platforms at the time.
Well, well, I love the content on Badlands, and it's been such a great alternative, especially, I mean, for so many of us. I mean, God, I mean, Fox. Come on, Fox News. What are you going to watch? Fox News?
Right. A lot of people do
You have
still.
to. I know you kind of have to watch Fox to know what happened in the news, but you don't have to like watch Fox to know what to think.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes any sense. But would you, thinking about how this group of people that you brought together, both the people who are content creators and the people who are watching you, and interacting with you, because this is kind of a whole free thinking group of people. These are people who are open to ideas that are outside of what, like, your friend Chris Paul would say, the TV is telling you
Mhm.
to think, and Trump has been on a rampage against fake news. And this, especially this last week, I saw just in the last hour, he announced his suit against 60 Minutes, his big victory against them. I think he's going
Yeah.
to get about $36 million, maybe 15 in cash and the rest in kind or something like that in
Yeah.
advertising. What do you think about his big, I don't know, I feel like he's chopping at the roots of the tree or something between that, and think about Colbert and his shot across the bow at Kimmel and Fallon today as well. I think it's to me it's hysterical to watch, and it's just like a comedy show to see
Oh,
the way
yeah.
that he goes after them right now.
Yeah, he's always been one to just, like, say it exactly how it is. These are the fake news, are the enemy of the people, and that's not a small thing to say, and he's definitely
Yeah,
being honest when he says it too. He's right. Um, I haven't been totally pleased with how his administration has handled the media this term. Trump himself has always been separated and distinct from his administration, and he's suing them. He's going after him. He calls him out, no holds barred. But his administration, like, we were promised this new media, right, at the White House, and I don't think we've seen it yet, and that's been one of my frustrations. Everybody
yeah,
got all excited, they're gonna bring in all these podcasters and everybody can apply, and I haven't seen a single actual, like, new media, non-conning person in there. It's all the same old people, and then a couple other big
yeah,
podcasters like Tim Pool, and so that's been frustrating to me. So because on one hand, I see Trump going after these people and targeting them and taking them down, but on the flip side of that, they're also kind of the reason they remain relevant. They're getting all the interview opportunities. They're getting all the access, and so I think at some point something's got to give. Like, I don't think if Trump really does want to take down the media fully, it, I don't know what it looks like, but I feel like they shouldn't be getting all these opportunities. But maybe it has to do with what's coming with, some of this Russiagate stuff and these investigations, because I
yeah,
do think there is a complicity level there for the media. They could easily be found liable for some of whatever they come out with, and if that's the case, they might not even exist in a couple of years. We just don't know. But yeah, there are some
yeah.
frustrations that I think could be had with how they've handled some of this.
Yeah. On one hand, I think maybe he's just getting throwing them out one at a time, because who was the first group he threw out? Was it, I can't remember who the
Is it
first one
Axios
was.
maybe?
Maybe. And then just I think he threw the Washington Post out after the Murdoch thing happened a couple days ago.
Or the Wall
He
Street
threw them
Journal?
out of the, yeah, maybe it was the Wall Street Journal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
right.
right, the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, I think
And
Axios was one of the first ones because they wouldn't call the Gulf of America the Gulf of
yeah,
America.
it's there's a hill to die on, I guess.
Yeah, the weird hill. But yeah,
And
he kind of is going through them systematically. That's a good point.
yeah, and I saw Ezra Cohen posted that he called basically the mainstream media co-conspirators in with the intel community whenever he, I guess, was talking about the unmasking.
Yeah.
So does that? I mean, it feels like it might be a little bit of a setup to continue to unravel what
Y-
the media has been doing.
Yeah, that's an absolutely great point. And if that's what it ends up being, I will totally understand the game theory behind it and why he did what he did. The hard part is, and this is where I think a lot of you know, I always get called like a doomer or whatever because I'm not afraid to say the things that I think other people are. And
Yeah,
it's like this is one of those things where we have a tough time in this movement with accepting potential realities and not wanting to give benefit of the doubt or give excuses for behavior. And I get it. It's like a mental thing. You want to try to justify what you're witnessing taking place, and so you do that for through many ways. But one of those things is like, okay, it's part of this big broader plan, and it very well could be. But I always say this because we aren't read it on that plan. We can't pretend to know what the plan is or operate on that level. And um, so we'll see. I'm going to complain about the press and the new media thing until I see them get rid of them all and them be charged as co-conspirators, and they'll be like, see, they were doing it, but we didn't know it for sure until it actually happens. Does that make sense?
yeah. No, I love that, and I love that perspective, and I think you're absolutely right that we shouldn't just give everybody. We can give Trump the benefit of the doubt all day long, but we also have to call out what's not lining up with what our expectations, and our
Yeah.
expectations are based on what he has said because he's been very clear
Yeah.
about where he's going. So if we're just not there yet, we're just not there yet. But there's no point in not being the kid in the back seat that says, "Dad, are we there yet?"
Oh, that's such a good point. That's such a good metaphor. He's probably so annoyed with us.
I'm sure he is. Uh, I mean, he's got reason to be annoyed with basically everybody in the country at this stage of the game. The people who are with him that are complaining, the people who are against him who are complaining. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we all suck.
Everybody's got
Um,
a gripe. Yeah.
yeah. Would you talk a little bit about DNI Gabbard's D class? One thing I've loved about your point of view is that all roads seem to lead, all roads forward seem to lead through 2020, and there's no
Yeah.
way forward that doesn't rectify what happened in 2020. And I'm hopeful that this what we're starting to see with Gabbard and definitely Trump's super epic posts over the last couple of days
Yeah.
means that we're headed somewhere.
Yeah. So I totally agree. 2020 needs to be rectified. And it's been really cool to see all these people talking about this Grand Rico and how it starts in 2016, but it ends like even with the AutoPen scandal in 2024. And so that is a huge window of time that they're going to be looking at this stuff. And the way they're rolling it out now is it's almost chronological order of the entire thing. So it was, gosh, what was it before? We just got the announcement from John Solomon like 2 weeks ago about what this is going to look like, and we already have like investigations, multiple investigations into all this stuff. And the first one we got was the IG report on the mid-year exam, and then the second one we got was the Mueller report, and then the third one was the Durham report, which was an investigation into kind of both of those. And all these things are going to be looked at. It's all the same people that were being investigated or were doing the investigating of Trump and Hillary and whatever. And John Solomon said that they are looking to get two sets of documents declassified in part of their review and part of like bringing forth these criminal charges. And one of them was the classified appendix to the Durham report, and the other one was the classified appendix to this inspector general's report. And that's what we got, the one from the inspector general's report. And it's pretty fascinating to me because on top of that, we also got what did we get? Um, the thing from Obama was just like 2 days, the Friday before, which is almost like now kind of forgotten about because what we just got yesterday with the inspector general appendix. But on Friday, yeah, they released all this communication and everything around the intelligence community assessment, and that was the precursor to the rest of it. Like the whole thing is fascinating, but they're finally trying to show us, I think, the actual criminality and what they can show publicly. Like they're telling us the story the details of the story that they've already broadly told us before. And that's what I think is so cool because it's a rerun, but it's a more detailed rerun than we already knew, and it's confirming so many things that we believe to have taken place, and it's kind of feeding our confirmation bias. And I'm so appreciative of how they're doing it because I'm a guy who appreciates documents, and I love seeing the documents behind it all.
How far back? So John Solomon was talking about conspiracy, like as long as it's connected, the kind of you don't have to worry so much about a statute of limitations.
Yeah.
How far back do you think the criminality is going to take us? Do you think it goes all the way back to 2008? Do you think it's going to go back to um, Barry Soweto and whether Obama has a birth certificate and all of that, or further back even?
To me, it's tough to see that happening. I think they're gonna stick to what they can actually, like, go after stuff they've done against Trump, to, somebody that they were trying to prevent from getting in there.
Yeah.
And I think that starts with what they did to cover up and help Hillary in 2016 with the mid-year exam and the Clinton email investigation. And then every act in furtherance of the conspiracy, every overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy, it could be connected, and that's how they can keep extending this window. And so it'll be interesting to see how and what they do to prove that, like, an auto pen scandal, or, you know, Jack Smith going after Trump and all this political persecution, how they're going to be able to connect that to the first instance of the intelligence community burying the Hillary Clinton email scandal, because that's essentially what they're going to have to do, is show that all these same group of people were still trying to, like, keep doing their crimes. They're basically going to have to expose that a lot of the political elites in the intelligence community, they're gonna have to expose the deep state crime syndicate. That's what they're gonna
Yeah.
essentially have to do and tie it all together. I don't think that's gonna be an easy thing to prove. So I'm curious to see how they do it.
Yeah, because you can't help but think about the big, classic conspiracy theory map on the whiteboard with all of the yarn everywhere.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think about the way that our elections have happened in Louisiana. What I mean, super super red state here, right? We have, I think, the highest percentage of rhinos anywhere in the country. It is in politics, right? Like it's the craziest thing, and I mean, it makes sense that in a place that's red, the uniparty runs red, and in the places where, you know, they're blue, the uniparty runs blue. It's
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. But it just feels so much like a deeper betrayal whenever these people you think like you really thought we had them on a show. We really thought they were with us, and then they come and just like stab you in the throat. Um, it's just hard to take, and I just wonder, like, at what point, Tina Peters' hearing for habeas today is
Yeah.
today, and I'm just like, these roads have to lead through the states. It cannot just end in Washington because the swamp is so deep, and the swamp does not end in Washington. It's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Oh, I totally agree with that, and that's another aspect, and part of this, I do think the responsibility for the justice and accountability is gonna have to fall on us,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of that is gonna have to be at the state level. I don't know what that looks like. You get that all the time, like, people tell you, "Oh, you're complaining, but, like, what's your solution?" I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, and I don't know if we've seen, what the proper solution is yet. But I think a lot of that will be not dictated, but at least we'll be given an example of what that looks like potentially from how some of this bigger stuff plays out. Because if we can expose and at least see the exposure of the deep state elements and how they operate at the federal level, I think it'll be pretty easy to map, like, some of these state level things onto the same kind of format. And maybe there is some direct connections we even see. Like, I would not be surprised if we see some of these Democratic officials, especially when you talk about, like, furtherance of the crime and further overt acts to further the conspiracy. Think of some of the things they tried to do, like taking Trump off the ballot in Maine and
Yeah.
Colorado and all these things. The Fannie Willis case, like, there will be state organizations that are potentially roped up into this in a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
The Secretaries of State organization, I can't remember what it's called,
Yeah.
NAS maybe. Our, Secretary of State at the time in 2020 was Kyle Ardoin. He was the chair of NAS, and we have, documented evidence. I think it came out in Gateway Pundit, maybe. I don't know if it was leaked documents or if it was declass. It must have been leaked because it happened under Obama's watch. I mean, Biden's watch. Um, that he was so proud of censoring and reporting Louisiana citizens to the federal government, to DHS, for COVID conspiracies, election conspiracies, all this stuff. Well, he's still in government. He has a big, nice, fat job in the Louisiana state government right now, and his deputy was basically just crowned queen and put in the role of Secretary of State. Nobody had ever heard of her before.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's
It's
absolutely
ridiculous.
crazy.
The state level it's arguably even more important. You know what I mean? Because that's the stuff that's going to more so affect your day to day life. And we always talk about the devolution sandwich, right? Like there will be some top down cleaning out, and I think that's some of what we're seeing now. But a bulk of what needs to be done needs to happen at the state level, and that's one of the things I'm most proud of with Badlands is these local Badlanders groups that you know we can't even take credit for it. It's just like we've facilitated the opportunity for people to find each other,
Yeah.
and the people are taking it upon themselves to create these groups. And I think that's just so cool because there's so many of these popping up, and there's meetups happening all over, and that's where the change takes place and needs to be had. And like it's really cool, and I think it's so important.
It is absolutely important. I mean, one, just for mental sanity, because people need to be connected with people who get it, just to have a commonality baseline is
Yeah.
just, it's like a lifeblood. Um, and then and then whenever you put those minds together and they actually do something useful for the community or for the state, then you've really got something.
Yeah.
Um, I had hold on, I just had oh, I know what I was gonna ask you. So you think about 2020 and that getting rectified. This is my prayer. This is my hope that whatever Trump does with rectifying 2020, that somehow forces the issue at the states, right? Like, there's gotta be a clean slate. At some point, we have to say, these people were not elected. You cannot
Yeah.
prove that they were elected. At what point do we say the burden of proof is on you officials to prove that you were elected? And no
Yeah.
matter, here, no matter how loud we scream it, it hasn't been listened to. But
Yeah. I totally agree with you, and this is one of the things, it actually kinda got me in trouble back in the day because you'd be like, "There's no way Trump's gonna let another election be stolen, and so there's no way he's not gonna expose our election fraud system by the midterms of 2022." And the rectifying the 2022 midterms, or at least exposing election fraud, not the 22 exposing the election fraud rectifies 2020. And from that point on, like, you can't do things the way you used to do them, and
yeah,
once you expose the election fraud, how can you let anybody that's been elected stay in office? You have to start over because you can't trust any of the elections anywhere. And I mean, that's gonna be a very large mental obstacle for a lot of people to get over, and that's one of the reasons why, although I think there will be some justice and rectification of 2020, I don't know what it's gonna look like, and I don't know if we're gonna be happy with how it looks either because I also think Trump is clearly trying to operate and get things done in a way that doesn't break people's minds, and he doesn't want to upset the day-to-day normie. He's doing things for the normie because they aren't willing to cross the Rubicon and understand what's going on and what they need to do in their country. So I don't know. I'm curious. I'm more so curious than I am excited about how 2020 will be addressed because it has to, right? Like logically,
yeah.
you'd think they would have to address this thing, but I don't know how they're gonna do it. Like that's not one puzzle I'd want to be in charge of like putting together.
No, me either. Any predictions for a first arrest though, or any anybody on your wish list?
Yeah, I mean, everybody that was at that meeting on December 9th, like there's a whole the NPC meeting or whatever
Mhm.
is a candidate. I think Brennan would be great to see. And he could possibly be first. I look at John Ratcliffe. So John Ratcliffe played such a big role in uncovering the Russiagate stuff from the beginning, and then he gets in there as DNI for Trump in the first term and put out a whole bunch of documents. And the first interview he did when he got named as director of the CIA this term was just sit there and bash John Brennan. Like he spent a whole hour on, I think it was Breitbart or something. He did not hold anything back, calling him like he's the reason for the intelligence community being set back so long and the politicization and all these things. So I think he's a good candidate for arrest number one. I could see Comey too. Trump's going after Comey.
Yeah.
I am not sold that Obama will be arrested, but that's just because we haven't seen everything. Based on the information we have now, I don't think there's enough to go after Obama. Um, it's I think it's obvious to see that he did it. I don't think we have enough proof, but I also don't know what else they have and what else is coming. But yeah,
Yeah.
Brennan's my guy, my candidate.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
This morning, we had David Clements on the State of Freedom, and
cool.
he made a very interesting point, which was, everybody was watching General Flynn to see where he was going to get placed in this administration. And now that we're seeing this D class come out, it makes perfect sense that he couldn't be anywhere near any of this stuff because it just looked personal. It would look manufactured. It would look like he had an axe to grind, where it looks so much more respectable and above board coming from somebody like Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, that is a good point. I haven't thought about it that way. Trump. No, I think no matter what the optics of this are going to look like, or at least they're going to be. I don't necessarily think it's going to look this way, but the mainstream media and the left are going to present it as the same thing for Trump, right? This is just like him trying to get revenge, and none of it's real, and he's just going after political opponents. But I think a lot of that doesn't matter what they say anymore. And I think you could say the same thing about Flynn if he's in there. I wouldn't be surprised if Flynn does get a cabinet position at some
Yeah.
point, but we'll see. Maybe his role is more important served, out here in the face to face with the people.
Yeah. It is, at least for now. It seems like it has been, but I hope he gets a spot to be, directing some level of retribution.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, these people are going to get what's coming to them. The
Yeah.
writing is on the wall at this point. It's been what we've been waiting for. This investigation is the retribution we've been waiting for. I'm just trying not to stand too heavily on the rug because I always leave open that window of possibility that they're going to do all of this, and just like the Durham report, we're going to get one low level attorney that gets arrested, and then one, right? So
Yeah.
just trying to encourage people to temper expectations because you never know.
Yeah. I saw you had Mike Benz on Only Lands the other day,
Yeah,
your show on Friday night. That's super cool. Do
yeah, he's
you
great.
so he was talking about how there's a big gaping hole that could be filled by knowing what really went down with Seth Rich and
Yeah.
what he really had. Have you given any thought to what that might be, or if we're getting close to seeing something like that?
Well, think about what the intelligence community has said about those emails that WikiLeaks got. Everybody says it's this Guccifer or whatever who hacked the emails, a Russian entity. If it turns out none of that was true, and it was actually Seth Rich, that completely exposes the entire intelligence community. You can't believe anything they ever attributed to Russia. I don't think they ever had
And it's
evidence of it.
always Russia. Just pick somebody else.
Right? But they can't. He's like their boogeyman. Um, but I think that would be huge if Julian Assange came out and said that his source was Seth Rich, which it's pretty much confirmed based
Yeah.
on. I mean, that's a strong word. It's very, very heavily implied based on that one video clip that it's clearly Seth Rich. But once that gets confirmed, and if he can prove it, what are you going to say about the FBI? What are you going to say about CrowdStrike? What are you going to say about the entire investigation put forth by the intelligence community that backed up the entire? I mean, it just adds a whole nother layer, I think, to the Russia collusion narrative and the intelligence community and their nefarious actions and dirty tricks or whatever. Uh, I I think people kind of forgot about Assange. After he
Hmm.
got out of prison, and there's a lot of hype around him. And then I hadn't thought about Julian Assange in a long time until Mike Benz brought it up, and it's such a great point because I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of weeks maybe we get that. I wonder if Mike Benz was alluding to something.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, of course for us, but I mean, even his family, just being left out in the dark over here saying, oh, just it was a random MS-13 gang roaming the streets of DC. I lived in DC for 14 years. I, I
Mm,
mean, I lived in places, I lived, I don't know, in a very urban part of the city. Uh, I don't think that there's just roving MS-13 gangs going through there, going through the streets, not back then.
no,
So,
And the way Julian Assange answered that, and I've seen that video before. I don't remember having the reaction that I did of like how obvious it is that
Yeah.
that he was asked about his source, and then out of nowhere he brings up Seth Rich. Like he was the one who brought up Seth Rich, not somebody else. He brings it up in the context of his sources. Like that right there, like is the slight confirmation. I hate using the word confirmation in that context because it wasn't technically confirmed, but it's. I mean, how else would you read that?
Yeah.
Like, why
As
would he
close
bring
as
up
you can
Seth
get.
Rich? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so did you see, and I'm sure you did, the post that Trump did with that like anonymous guy,
Oh
the
yeah.
video where they were basically the explainer on what DNI Gabbard
Yeah.
released. So I was listening to that and I was just thinking, why why did Obama risk treason? You know, because he did. I think I something in that video triggered for me. Like he knew that he was going to commit treason by doing this overt act of changing the narrative and saying that Russia interfered in the election or influenced the election. And
Yeah.
and I've always just thought, well, of course they stole the election because they're crooks and that's what crooks do. And we already know they have all these other crimes, Benghazi, Uranium One. I mean, all of the color revolutions they did to overthrow other governments. Uh, but but what it got me thinking, like, what do we not know about? What was there something even bigger that they were trying to cover up by stealing the election? I guess I've been so fixated on the fact that they stole it that I haven't spent any time asking, like, why
Yeah.
did they steal it?
No, that's a great question. We always speculate and think of all the crimes that, Obama did going back and anywhere from the gun walking scandal, the Iran nuclear deal, the Palace of Cash, the what else? I mean, the Benghazi situation, the Uranium One deal. Like there's so many
Yeah.
bad things you could point to, and it could go back even further than that. But then in the summer of when those emails come out, okay, and the WikiLeaks thing, and then the summer of 2016 when they start this investigation. And actually, it started because of the Benghazi. I'm pretty sure the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails was because of the Benghazi investigation
I
into her
think
by
that's right.
Congress. They were trying to get her emails. They went to the State Department. They couldn't find any Hillary Clinton emails at the State Department. It's like that's a little weird for the Secretary of State not to have emails at the State Department. And that's when they uncovered that she was using this private email server. And so the FBI was kind of forced to open this investigation. And once that investigation was ongoing, they didn't want that to like become a thing. And obviously they didn't even look at some of the thumb drives. Like the whole thing was bogus. But at the same time, this Trump guy's getting momentum and all of a sudden he becomes a candidate. And they're like, well, like, we can't let this guy win. We can't control this guy. So while they're burying this other investigation, you have to start this phony thing. And Hillary Clinton is the one, oddly enough, who agrees to vilify Trump and pays to do it. The intelligence community knows about it. Obama knows about it. All of them know about it, but obviously they don't do anything. They go with it. And after the election, I think at that point, like if you get to the election and Hillary Clinton wins, everything they were up to before that, none of it matters because they can bury it all effectively.
Yeah.
None of that actually matters. But the fact that Trump won, however he won, people play game theory with that all the time too. Like, did they stop this deal or did he legitimately just go to all the states Hillary Clinton wouldn't? And was the sentiment in America that much against Hillary Clinton? Like she was not a well-liked person.
No.
Is it possible he legitimately just won? You could look at that either way. It doesn't matter. Trump won in 2016. And at that point, they were like, oh, crap. Like what we just did with the Hillary Clinton stuff and allowing the Russia collusion Steele dossier thing to get this far is already a big no-no. And so in my opinion, I think not being able to look into, their minds and see what they're thinking and anything else that bigger that was going on, just like surface level explanation, you could say they were already in too deep at that point that they had to commit and follow through. And that explains why they went as far as they did with the Mueller investigation and everything else and why Obama was okay with it because he was already like too far in. Could it be that there's a much more nefarious explanations like of what they're covering up and what could come out? Absolutely. And that's probably even more likely. But yeah, I think they were too far gone by the time January 6th rolled around that Trump was going to get the votes and they knew they had to delegitimize him because worst case scenario, they get enough to impeach the guy because he's got ties to Russia. Well, they couldn't fabricate enough evidence to get him tied to Russia, so they couldn't impeach him. They couldn't even impeach him with the fake Ukrainian thing. And then that's when COVID came about, and then they had to actually go through with stealing the election. So I'm just curious to see where it goes. I think surface level, all the stuff they've done is bad enough, and I think it could only get worse for them based on what they expose for us. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, and what do you think about these landmines? I was watching, I can't remember which one, maybe it was your show yesterday and then today your Daily Herald. And I saw that you were talking about Susan Rice writing herself an email.
Yeah,
It's basically to just like cover her butt, and then
yeah.
the same with James Comey, like, writing
Uh,
himself a memo after his meeting with Trump, as if, like, this is somehow gonna inform the intelligence whenever they come back to look at these people.
It's weird. It's really weird. Like the Susan Rice one was 15 days after the fact, and she's like memorializing this meeting. She didn't have to write that memo, but she wanted to for some reason. And it seems like the only thing she really wanted to say was like, Obama made it clear that, you know, we weren't going to do anything that we weren't supposed to be doing. Like he really encouraged us to make sure that we did it by the book. And that seemed to be the whole point of that. And then the Comey memos are weird too. It's weird that Trump pointed it out because he hasn't, as far as I remember, in the past at least 4 years, but going back to when that memo probably first came out, I don't remember Trump ever alluding to that 80 some page report from the IG. Doesn't make sense. And then he's mentioned it like multiple times now. And I think it's the first time I've actually read through those memos before. And it's just really weird. I'm not even all the way done reading them, but the first couple, it's just totally like he's trying to make it seem like Trump was really worried about the Russia PP story and all these things. And like Trump was really defensive about how he was with women. And it's just like that none of it sounds like Trump. It just seems as furtherance of the conspiracy to like try to paint Trump as this certain way um, none of it was true. So I'm hoping Trump has recordings to
Yeah.
debunk what he was saying.
I hope so too. What do you think that, I mean, it seems like they may have tried to plant landmines in the intel along the way to like throw any future people off their scent. Do you think that's a possibility, or like it was just kind of too late for them to do anything?
That's a great question. I'm sure there is like fake stuff in there and landmines, depending where it's at and depending on who had their hands on it. But also when it gets to like a conspiracy like this, as complicated and as how many people are involved, it's impossible to like have it all meshed together because it's not the truth. The truth is always the infinite player on the game board. Everything else is a shelf life. Eventually, when the truth comes out, it's gonna be obvious, and the lies are gonna like fade away. Like you can only lie for so long, and the more you have to lie to cover up for previous lies, the worse it gets, and the more confusing it gets. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing. Like where there's a lot of like weird contradictions and holes in stories and things that just don't make sense. The hardest part throughout this whole thing is going to be proving the intent and like a lot can be gleaned from it that these people met this day and then the very next day they come out with an obviously like bogus report on based on the intelligence they had, and they also had intelligence that Hillary Clinton paid for the Russia collusion thing. So you can surmise that hey, this they probably did that on purpose and that should be a crime. But are you going to have any evidence that's like, here's a recorded call between John Brennan, Barack Obama,
Right.
James Comey, where they are talking about, hey, we need to do this. Like the proof is the part that I'm looking for. And I think for some people that's all that's ever gonna be enough to convince them that Trump has been right, the media's been lying, and they've been wrong. Um, for our side, we don't care. We don't need that. A lot of the people on our side are like, we don't care. We just want to see them charged. But if we're going to prove this not only in court, but also the court of public opinion, which I do think is an important part of like breaking people's brains away from the mainstream media and like starting to get people to care about what is actually going on in their country. Because a lot of people don't care about the Russian
Yeah.
collusion stuff anymore. Nobody cares. But if you can show that Barack Obama was, on a recorded call talking to somebody, that is going to get people to care again. Like, holy cow, how did this guy become president? How come the media told me for so long that none of what this guy said was true, or none of what Trump was saying was true, when he was right the whole time, and it's much worse than I thought. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see.
Yeah. Well, maybe there, I don't know if it was a Q thing or what, where they say FISA works both ways, or it might have just been General Flynn, like, you know, blowing off steam on X. He probably said that, but maybe there are recordings of some of those meetings. Maybe some of those phone calls and texts did get picked up. I hope they did.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, there's always been a push from all the places you wouldn't think about reauthorizing the FISA court. Like every time that
Yeah,
comes up, you always get all the people that you wouldn't think would be want to do that, like a John
Mike
Ratcliffe,
Johnson.
Mike Johnson. These people are like, yeah, we really need to reauthorize this stuff. And it's like, well, I thought we were just complaining about this being used. Why are we
Hmm.
doing this now? Is it because that we're using it against them? Very possibly.
I
Curious
hope
to
so.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. So a couple, probably maybe, I don't know, it was November of last year, something like that. There was this, it was kind of an obscure press conference that you may or may not have ever caught. It was with Mark Fincham when he was running for state senate in Arizona. It was a guy named Craig Sawyer, he founded Veterans for Child Rescue. He's a former Navy SEAL.
Was this down
Pretty.
in Arizona?
It was in Vegas, I think.
Okay.
And then there was an assistant chief of police out of Tennessee, and I can't remember his name, but they were talking about, or pre-exposing, I guess you could say, a big cover up that they were uncovering in Tennessee, and they said that it was a massive RICO case, and it connected politicians to sex trafficking, to this is the word that caught my ear and has been ringing since: mortgage fraud, um, and international actors. And anyway, it's a bit, and I think they said kind of the Act Blue, Win Red groups. And so I've just been thinking about, like, this Letitia James, when she got flagged for mortgage fraud, I was like, "Oh, wait, where have I heard that before?" And then most recently, I think Adam Schiff got dinged for
Yep.
mortgage fraud. And
Yep.
so I wonder if they're going to roll these people up in a very unusual way, kind of like, who is the guy who caught the mob on tax evasion? I can't remember.
Oh,
Anyway, Al, uh,
Al Capone was the guy, wasn't he? But
yeah,
I don't remember who did the case against
yeah.
but
Anyway, where he's waving it starts with a E. Anyway, somebody will know.
yeah, that's an interesting thing you bring up. I'm trying to think back. Wasn't there like a hearing they did for that? And I think was it oh gosh, one of my buddies was there. I'm pretty sure one of our election integrity, Seth Keshel, wasn't he at the hearing?
Oh, he probably was.
Yeah, because I remember seeing that stuff come out and the report come out. And anytime anytime we get there is so much grifting around like this topic, these topics,
Yeah.
and this movement, that I'm always anytime I see anything, even if like some of my buddies are there, then I know like, hey, I trust this. Like he maybe not have known what was going on or whatever for whatever reason. I don't just like go all in and trust information just because somebody's saying it, and just especially the stuff that I want to be true. Like that's I feel like if you hear something you want to be true, that's like when you should be questioning it and making sure that it's legitimate before you like commit your emotional self to that thing, because once it ends up not being true, it kind of goes away. I remember thinking about that story. If we're thinking of the same thing, that I was like, this sounds too good to be true, and there's something fishy here. And then I remember not long after that feeling like, oh, I knew it. I told you that thing was kind of BS, but I don't remember why. I'd have to look into this. So I feel like I'm just like kind of
Yeah.
talking on my butt right now. But bringing up the mortgage fraud thing, it is weird how like multiple times now we've had multiple high profile people going after, y- you know, getting taken down because of the mortgage fraud thing, especially when Letitia James went after Trump for that. And yeah, do we care? Like, if we know Adam Schiff's a bad guy, do we want him to be taken down by a mortgage fraud case, or do we want him to be taken down by like the other crimes we think he's done? And I think this is one of the things we have to accept too is not everybody that we believe to be awful. We may not get proof of their awfulness, and we may not get them to like be held accountable for those actions, but we still may see some form of justice. And maybe that's like the case here with an Adam
Yeah.
Schiff. Are we going to
Yeah.
be okay with Adam Schiff going to prison for mortgage fraud when we think he should be there for lots of nefarious reasons? I don't know.
It's
I think each
true.
person has to
Elliot
decide.
Ness. Elliot Ness was the guy's name who went after Al Capone.
Okay.
But
Elliot Ness.
the thing about this, and I'm not saying this is definitely 100% real, but I have talked to Craig Sawyer a couple times since that press conference, and he did say that the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations raided that police office, and they've taken everything. I believe they said that the deputy had copies of everything.
Was it
But
Dar Leaf? Is that
no,
that's a
it
different guy?
wasn't Darleaf. It's a different guy.
I wish I could
I'll have to
remember
look it up.
that guy's name.
Hold on.
The
I can
mortgage
look
thing.
it up. I can look it up. Let me see.
'Cause I'm trying to. Wasn't there something? Wasn't the guy? Was the guy trying to sell a book or something? Is that what it was?
Oh,
I
I don't
don't remember
know.
why I'm thinking like, okay, well that
Well, I think something weird happened with Mark Fincham, but I don't remember what it was. Anyway, let me see if I can
I know it like half an hour after the show's done would be like, oh, it was that guy.
Yeah. Let's see.
Let's see if I can find it.
Sean Taylor, Millersville, Tennessee Deputy Chief of Police, Sean Taylor.
Okay. Is it Operation Clean Sweep?
That might be it.
Federal civil RICO case, retired assistant Chief Sean Taylor and former city attorney Bryant Kroll uncover witch hunt against Millersville Police Department veterans. Bryant Kroll, maybe that. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that more. But I remember this being a thing. It's the Arizona one that I was thinking of because I know Seth Keshel was there. There was this whole thing about a mortgage situation and like how they were using mortgage fraud.
That was different. That was with hold on. There was one of the officials, the fake officials, the non-elected elected officials, and she was something to do with the cartels and mortgage fraud down there, and I think all of that blew up.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Of. So this is what you were saying is separate. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my bad then.
No, it's all good. But I love that mortgage fraud is a common thread because I think there's probably something there.
Yeah, and Trump has been hammering mortgage rates lately, so maybe there's something to that too.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Well, John, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming on. I don't know, do you have any other thoughts or wisdom that you want to share with the audience?
No, thanks for having me. I love doing interviews. I forget how much I enjoy doing interviews because most of the time I'm just like hosting my own show. So I always appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, if you haven't made it to a GART, I'd encourage you to do so. And also, even if you don't want to come to a GART, which is the conferences we do, I would encourage you to go to badlandsmedia.tv/events and scroll to the bottom. And there's all sorts of local meetups that are being held all over the country. And if you haven't, I would encourage you to just go to one of those meetups. You don't have to be a fan of Badlands or any of us to go meet with like-minded people who just want to save their country and hang out with other like-minded people. So I'd encourage you to do that, you and your audience.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I can vouch for GART. Well, I was in the pre-GART phase.
Yeah.
I was back in the Threadfest days. And I did try to go to the GART, the first GART. I think, was it meant to be in Arizona?
I think we did the first one in Arizona, and then we've been all over since.
Okay. I bought tickets to that one, and my plane got canceled because of weather in Houston.
Oh.
So, yeah. Anyway,
yeah, we'll have to get you to another one sometime.
Yeah. Well, I would love that. And I just appreciate you so much. Thank you for just standing up and for continuing to dig into all of what's going on. It's an important thing that you're doing, and it's no small thing because how many of us are going to read through these executive orders? Very, very few.
Yeah.
So we're counting on you, John. I
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you, Danielle. Appreciate
Have a good one. God bless.